Mesdames et messieurs,
The greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin.
This is gonna be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jarris, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
I am hoping that you will drive the motorboat for me.
And what will you be doing off the back of it?
I will be hanging on to my little board and my little cord and flipping around.
All right, I would love to see that. Today we are talking about the second half of the 2025 World Games from Chengdu, China. World Games, as we've talked about before, are the purview of the International World Games Association and showcase sports that either aren't on the Olympic or Paralympic program or could be on the program someday. And we have a special guest with us, our very own Shuklastani, John Moorhead, who competed in American football at the Wrocław 2017 World Games. Hello, John.
I would also trust John to drive my motorboat. Well, what I would trust John to absolutely is to throw me in the air and catch me. Yeah.
That would be very fun. John, you still are connected to the World Games a little bit.
A little bit, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
So currently, I work loosely with the US Fistball Association. I help with some of their operations, and I am on the board of directors as their secretary. I just kind of fell into that after the Wrocław Games in 2017. I had talked to some guys, and their base is back in New Jersey, which is like not too far from Maryland. So I would drive up, play some fistball with them, and it's a very, very small group. Like there might be like 15 players on the men's national team. There's only like 8 on the women's national team. So it's a very small group, and I just kind of, whenever they need help with stuff, I help out a little bit. I was with them in Birmingham, and I kind of helped them prepare for Chengdu.
What have you heard back from Chengdu?
So from Chengdu, the experience was really good. It was a lot bigger than Birmingham. So a lot of there's several girls from the team who competed in Birmingham, who were holdovers to the Chengdu team, and just everything was just bigger. They felt like the athletes' village was bigger. There was more food options. There was more things to do in the athletes' village. Venues were further away though. When in Birmingham, they stayed at Birmingham Southern College, and they stayed in the dorms, and then you walk out and the field was right there. The practice field was right there. The training centers were an hour away, so they would take like a shuttle an hour. There was a much more fan interaction, the ladies said. So like there were there was more people than there were at the Birmingham games. And they played better than they thought they were going to. They stole a couple sets from Chile and Argentina, which is, fistball's a historically German sport, and very popular in like the Bavarian region of southeast Germany. So Switzerland's very competitive, so is Austria. And then there's, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, who have some of those little German clusters in their countries are also very competitive. So the United States is always really tough, especially with such a small player pool to choose from, to be competitive. But the girls were competitive. They qualified. The men did not qualify. The women did, and they played with a lot of grit, and it was an overall good experience. I will say, like, they talked a lot about how humid the climate was in Chengdu. Birmingham was hotter, according to the girls. Birmingham was way hotter. It was a heat wave in July when the Birmingham games were. So overall, the fitness levels, the girls were ready for that, and it showed.
So yeah, I think we're all looking forward to 29 in Karlsruhe, Germany, where we will not melt.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, like we were sitting there, but the
but you could tell. You could definitely tell. I mean, they actually had
see it. Yeah, there were every outdoor sport. Every athlete was just walking out onto the field, soaking wet already.
but you could tell that they actually had it at the flag football venues and even the fistball. They had the mist machines
Mhm.
going, so the athletes had a chance to cool off. And ultimate disc had cooling breaks like they do in soccer. So like they were better prepared than they were in Birmingham. Birmingham, they were not as prepared for the heat as they were in Chengdu.
which is ridiculous
I
because
know.
Birmingham is not it's not in New Hampshire.
No, no.
All right. So, general observations you have from watching this World Games, John, as you've been involved with them for a few sessions or a few editions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one as an athlete, one as I guess a worker with USA Fistball, and then one just is this has been actually nice because I was able to sit at home and just besides the time zone, but we know we're all pros at if you've watched enough multi-sport events, you can kind of deal with the time zones. But I will say, just comparing the three that I've been a part of in some capacity, they're all very different, and I think that's kind of what makes the World Games special. Like the Olympics are held in these mega cities, LA, Tokyo, Paris. These are world cities that have, millions plus people. Now, Chengdu did have 24 million. They do have 24 million people who live in their city, but like Roslav was much smaller, right? It was more of a homey local feel. Every venue is within 10 minutes away. One central athletes village, so you're around a lot more athletes. Birmingham was much more like sport focused. I felt like Birmingham was more like they advertised flag football and lacrosse and softball, like sports that were core to the American culture. And they kind of really pushed out those smaller sports like fistball and I think wushu were the only sports at Birmingham Southern College, and you could tell there was a lot less publicity, lot less people. And then Chengdu, from what I've seen or saw and who I've spoken with, like that it had more of a mega multi-sports game feel, more of an Olympic feel with the big athletes village, the multiple things to do. They had a daycare center for like athletes with babies. They had massage rooms. They had puppy therapy rooms. They had like they went all out. The cafeteria was all out. I just remember the food in Wrocław being terrible. Like the food in Poland was so just dried chicken and rice, and you're just like, there's no other options. Food in Birmingham was just like your American, like, oh, you can get burgers, you can get pizza, you can get pasta. It was a little more to my liking, but like I think Chengdu they had like different cuisines from around the world that you would see at an Olympic Games. Like the athletes were raving about the village, they were raving about the opening ceremony. That felt like it felt like a major opening ceremony. I mean, Rostov was like, I wasn't there. I was sleeping during the one in Rostov. I just got off the plane. I was like, I'm not going to this. And that's one of my huge regrets I have. But it was like a half empty stadium. And Birmingham, from what I saw on TV, was a little more like Chengdu, just not as like athlete centered and focused. It was lot shorter. And then just the transportation, just getting athletes to and from the shuttles were consistent. So from what I've heard, the Chengdu felt like more of like a bigger feel, like an Olympic feel. Wrocław was a much smaller feel, which isn't always a bad thing. And then Birmingham was more just let's get the money kind of thing. They
Sounds
didn't do
very
that.
American.
Yeah,
But
weird.
I'm curious because you have this what should the World Games be? And I would think for a multi-sport event you would want to be able to focus on bringing athletes together from other sports because that's the magic of something like a World Games. I mean, having a bigger athletes village and having more facilities or more options for them sounds really good. It also sounds a little expensive, but it also where I guess it's where you prioritize what you're spending on. And maybe that's something the World Games hosts think about going forward to create that big feel with more optimized budgets, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, we stayed in dorms in Poland, and then they stayed in dorms in Birmingham. This one had like more of a hotel vibe feel. I do know that the IFA, so the International Fistball Association, they would only allocate you 11. You had 11 rooms. If you wanted to bring, so like a team, we brought a team doctor, a team manager, a social media person. So USA Fistball had to pay for three extra three extra, that wasn't going to be covered by Chengdu local or the IFA. So each international federation got a certain number of beds, I guess you could say, and then any extra bed you had to foot the cost yourself. So the national governing body had to foot the cost, or the individual person had to foot the bill. There were some like restrictions when it came to like who could stay there and the budgeting and things like that.
Though when you're at a city with 24 million people, it, if you build more housing, it's not going to go to waste. As in Birmingham, if all of a sudden you build all these apartments or all these hotels, probably not going to use them afterwards much.
Well, the funny thing is that Birmingham Southern College is no more. They shut down, and it was actually a crazy story because they shut down about 2 years ago. And when they closed their doors, their Division III men's baseball team was still in the Division III College World Series, and they kept playing. They kept winning. So they were actually it was a baseball team without a school, because the university closed doors like May 24th, like after commencement, and the baseball season, baseball gets extended into like June. So they were actually still playing baseball without a school name. I don't think they didn't end up winning it, but they made it like to the Final Four. It was actually a pretty interesting story.
It's like the unified team of
Yeah.
college baseball.
Wow.
So the dorms that the fistball athletes and the wushu athletes used are now just sitting there. So like
Wow.
another, what is it called? The Olympic Ghost City?
The White Elephants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another ghost city. Yeah.
Wow. What other sports besides fistball did you watch for Chengdu?
I try to watch just about everything. I watched a lot of sports that were on in the morning Chengdu time. So that was like 8 to like 10 p.m. East Coast time. So flag football, softball, men's softball. So women's softball tended to be kind of towards the middle of the night most of the time, but men's softball was early. There's some inline speed skating, orienteering, duathlon. Those were all like early morning sports. And then sometimes in the morning, I would see like morning East Coast time, which was nighttime, like 8, 9 p.m. Chengdu time, a lot of kickboxing, sambo, a lot more of the combat sports, powerlifting. I saw a bunch of, but then I would go back and I try to like watch some things like I really wanted to see. Like I would go back and watch like inline hockey, floorball, canoe polo, just like a lot of team sports that I wanted to just kind of check out.
I did want to ask you about flag football, especially the women's tournament, because I didn't watch much of the men's, but I did watch the 2 medal matches for flag football in women's, which were fantastic, really great games. The gold medal was US versus Mexico. Huge upset, it felt like, because Mexico won. What do you think of the play? Is it typical of flag football? Was this tournament indicative of what we're going to see in LA, do you think?
I think yes. I think Mexico. So this is quite the rivalry the two countries have, because Mexico defeated the United States at the World Games in 2022, but at the World Championships in 2024, the U.S. beat Mexico. So they've been going back and forth. And Diana Flores, the Mexican quarterback, she is quite the celebrity. She's got it going on. She's one of the few athletes who I think can just do flag football full time and just make enough off of sponsorships and other types of endorsements and income. I think the women's play is so much better than the men's play. There was no men's competition. For some reason, I guess Chengdu was setting its priorities with flag football and lacrosse already being in the Olympic sports or in LA 28. So I think they didn't have any men's sixes for lacrosse or men's flag football, but they also didn't have any like women's inline hockey. So like there's some like weird team sports, like why were some included one word? I don't know. Anyway, the women's version of the game is so much more like technical, I would say, but like it's exciting because the men will do like the double passes. The women utilize it a lot more. The men's a lot more, hey, it's one-on-one, I'm jump ball corner in the end zone. I'm going to out muscle, out jump you. The women's game's a lot more like running slants to get open, kind of like the pick play at the end of the game against Mexico. Just like a little more, it's more exciting, I think. I think you also see the rest of the world catching up, like Austria. That was Austria's first major international competition, and they gave the Americans a really tight run for their money. The men's game, it's the United States, and then the women's game, it's the Mexico. So like there's some like weird team sports, like why were some included one word? I don't know. Anyway, the women's version of the game is so much better than the men's play. There was no men's competition. For some reason, I guess Chengdu was setting its priorities with flag football and men's flag football, but they also didn't have any like women's inline hockey. So like there's some like weird team sports, like women's inline hockey. So like there's some like weird team sports, like women's it's Canada. Maybe throw Mexico in there. The women's game, I mean, I think in 4 years or 3 years, you give a couple of these countries time to develop and actually and that's what's attractive about flag football. It's the fact that you don't have to play this game your whole life. You give yourself 4 years of training. You can be, with an athletic background coming from a track or coming from a softball or coming from a volleyball, with an athletic background, you give yourself 4 years of training, you can be an Olympian. It's kind of like bobsledding, right? A lot of those bobsledders were track and field athletes. They were football players, but those skills transition easy. Men's game, if you play tackle football, you have a huge advantage when it comes to flag football. So the fact that a lot of Americans play tackle football, Europe is growing the game. Canada has their own league. Mexico has their own league, but it's going to be, the powerhouses. The women's games, you're going to see a lot more, especially in LA. It's going to be, the playing field's going to be a lot more even than the men's playing field will be.
Yeah, there seemed to be a big difference in the style of the North American countries play versus how the European countries were playing. So it was like Canada, US, Mexico seemed more similar than the European teams. But that makes sense that the European teams are growing the sport.
Yeah, a lot of deep balls. I was very impressed with Canada's quarterback. I think her name's Sarah Parker. She has better arms than most high school varsity quarterbacks. We call it chucking the pigskin. She was just 30, 40, 50 yards downfield, and her girls would get under most of those balls. You watch the European teams play, and even Japan and China, it's a lot more, we call them dink and dump routes, a lot of more underneath balls. Coverage is deep. You want to throw underneath the coverage. You're only going to get 5-10 yards, but you're going to pick and pick and pick because you don't have the athletes quite yet or the arms quite yet to throw those deep balls downfield. But the Canadian quarterback, she impressed me with that. She was just letting it rip, and it was awesome to see.
And the US's old lady, Benita Crouch, got to give a shout out to the old lady.
She's great. I mean, old is gold. I know it was silver this time, but it's, the age is just a number to a lot. I mean, if you look at, honestly, not just her, a lot of the other athletes. I mean, the oldest athlete was 68, was an American. I mean, there was a canoe polo player from Spain. She was 49. That's the World Games. You can definitely see. I think there were over 100 of the 4,000 athletes. I think there was over 100 were 40 and older. So you see a lot more of a broader range of sports athletes that can still do it in an older age, which is always nice to see.
Gives you hope. Gives me hope.
It does. All right. Never say never. I mean,
we're not dead yet.
Not dead yet. And you find yourself, the older I get, I find myself pulling for those athletes more times than not. It's like,
gay to the old lady.
When you see the 29-year-old break dancer going against the 13-year-old, you're just like, I hope he beats this kid's butt. Go back to middle school.
Well, John, thank you so much. It's always great to catch up with you and get some World Games talking.
Of course.
We're really glad that you had some time to come on and talk with us.
Thank you for having me. This is always fun.
All right. World Games Week 2 for us. Do you have any general observations or feed beefs?
I do. I did run into a lot more trouble this week.
How so?
So I would click on an event. I was in the website, not on the app. I would click in an event and I would get the wrong event.
Oh,
I would click into inline skating and wushu would come up. Really wrong event. That happened a few times. And also it took a very long time to be able to watch the closing ceremony, not live.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't go through my normal, I was just clicking through the schedule. I had to really find it elsewhere on the site to be able to watch it. But once I got in, it was fine.
Okay.
But getting into things became a little trickier.
I had a beef with how they have stuff within the sport because I kept going into the sports to look via that way because I was hardly ever watching live. I was so far behind on everything. I'd go into the sport. I'd click on something like Fistball. We were talking to John. I was like, I will watch a little Fistball before we go on. And I watched probably 20 minutes and then I realized, oh, we're in Birmingham.
Oh, yeah. Somebody else was complaining about that on the Facebook group.
Yes. And the problem I had was the game was one of the first ones up there and it was labeled 2025.
Oh.
So if it got added this year, into the system, it might say 2025, and you had to really look at the thumbnails to find the right logo, and it was so difficult to do that. And I wish there was better labeling, I wish there was better dates added, because I've really had several instances where I ended up watching Birmingham and went, "Wait a second, this is not the right place." And that really frustrated me, because then I had thoughts on Fistball. I'm like, "Well, I have thoughts on Fistball from 3 years ago." You know? Nobody wants those.
So normally we do not have a to for World Games, and actually for most other things, we don't have a toilet time segment. But I do wanna mention that the past couple weeks, I have had toilet time because
Uh-oh.
we
Oh,
adopted an
no.
we adopted a new dog who is fabulous. But I'd be sitting there watching the World Games, and suddenly I would say, "Oh, wait, I have to pause and take Daphne out." So I realized that even at home during these multi-sport events, I end up having toilet talk because there has been so much discussion in my house about Daphne's toilet activities.
Which is norm for a new puppy. So,
So
hey. But
the segment has returned unintentionally.
but did you notice, I can bring this to the World Games. Did you notice during the closing ceremonies that one of the camera positions for when the athletes paraded in was right by the floor signs that told you, like, where the toilets were?
I didn't. Now I gotta go back and watch it
I
again.
just kept finding them. Like, it was, athletes go this way, the village is this way. Something was one way and the toilets were another way. And it just was like, why did you put the camera person there? Why? But that's okay. That was fine. It made me laugh. Officiating or volunteer jobs you'd want to do.
Okay, I got 2,
Okay.
and one is one we've seen before is the whoever is directing the athletes in the kiss and cry for gymnastics and aerobics and cheerleading, because these poor athletes never knew when to stay seated. They would
Oh,
always pop up, and I know that that poor person behind the camera was frantically telling them to stay seated. So clearly she needed I'm assuming it's a she, 'cause I think it was when we kind of saw her from the other camera. She needed better signage for the stay seated, probably in multiple languages, and, like, red lights and green lights. So I felt bad because that poor person, whoever he or she was frantically telling, because then suddenly the athletes would all, make a face like, "Oh, so surprised, I'm supposed to still be seated," or, like, the coach would grab them and pull them back. They needed some more help over there.
they needed to recycle the old masks on, masks off signs
Yes.
from the podium celebrations from Beijing, and that may have helped.
The the other job was the Moto Surf start judge,
Okay.
because in Moto Surf, they do a circle to start, and they have to be more than a half machine length, but no more than 2 moto whatevers apart, each one.
Oh, okay.
So the judge would tell them to go around again until they were exactly perfectly
Oh,
placed.
man.
So in the men's final, she made them go around like 3 times because
Wow.
they were not lining up the way they were supposed to. I thought that also would be good for you, because you would have loved, like, "Nope,
Oh,
do it
yeah.
again. How hard is it to follow the instructions? This is not rocket science, people. Just line up half a body length, 2 body lengths. Do you not understand the geometry of this?"
Well, I also had 2 jobs I'd wanna do, both in events that we will get to that I have plenty of thoughts about. The first one was the roller slalom judge. Why I would wanna be a roller slalom judge is because they just said, "Oh, you're 1st place, 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place." There was no other, like, they had criteria, but it was just like, "Oh, the first person to go always gets all 1st places because nobody else is gone." And then as other skaters go, they have to rejigger the numbers somehow, and it just felt really loosey-goosey. And I'm not a loosey-goosey person, but I would be like, "Oh, well, compared to the other people, this guy now is in 4th place."
It's kind of like the old 6.0 system from figure
Yes.
skating back in the day, because even though you would give people a raw number, 5.4, 5.6, you were actually, in the old words, ordinals, placing them in relation to all the other skaters. So it was never, oh, this program was X scored in abstraction. It was always in comparison. So yeah, I would also love to put the cones down
Yeah,
for
yeah, that would
for
also be good.
slalom.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The other job I would be interested in was in Boules, the Lyonnais progressive shooting event. Did you watch this? Oh, you
I
did watch this. I
did
saw this on your list. And I would want to be the person standing on the side that would replace the target ball on either
during.
side. Yes, during the event. So
That's a
those
good
were
one.
two things to do. Let's get into the sports.
Well,
Go
let's
go
just start
start
with
with
bowls since we're
okay.
already there. I
Yes.
watched both the Lyonnaise and the Pentake.
Petanque?
Petanque. Is that how you
I
pronounce it?
believe so.
So we saw this. Remember all the old men in that park in France?
Yes, yes.
And
Right
it's
by where we stayed, yes.
right. So this is one of these, it's like the Italian bocce.
It is bocce on a rocky surface. Not
Right.
super rocky, but it's like garden rocks, but it's not pebbles either. It was a little rocky with balls that on TV you couldn't tell apart.
Right. But there
And
was the
then
green ball, which was the target.
yes, and I watched the one where they had to they stood in a ring. Like there was a ring placed somewhere and they had to stand with both feet in the ring, which I think makes the shot a little more difficult to do.
Yes. And the Lyonnaise, they're running. That's like the speed
Oh,
version
okay. Okay.
where they go back and forth between two setups and do as
Okay.
many shots as they can in a certain amount of
Yeah,
time.
so the pétanque is a game.
Yes.
The Lyonnaise is a drill.
Yes.
The Lyonnaise is basically they have 2 target balls set up, one on either side of a strip, and you take a running shot at the target ball, and then you run after it, and to get to the other side, and then you repeat it, trying to hit the ball on the side you just left. So you just go back and forth on the strip, trying to hit as many target balls as you can in 5 minutes, and of course, sweating profusely in the humidity, and this to me looked like a drill.
I'm surprised you didn't like the slower version and the zen quality of it.
Of pétanque?
Yeah.
I would have liked it more if I could figure out whose ball was whose.
Oh, that's
I
fair.
couldn't because one on my screen looked blackish and one looked silvery dark gray. And I honestly couldn't figure out who was who, and that was a little frustrating to me. I did love how they called Lyonnaise on the commentary. This is pétanque stripped to its essence, which is it's not. It's a drill. So I watched very little of that, and I watched a bronze medal match of the actual game, which was interesting and it would be quite fun to play. I think it has that bocce quality to it. I think they need some help in trying to make it work for TV in terms of visibility and other stuff. The color guy was fantastic in this bronze medal match because I think he was from the association, and he is apologizing for his English, which he did not need to do because
I
it's
think he was
perfect.
Swiss, if I
And
remember correctly.
it might have been. And he did say, "We are trying to get away from this old man sport with the red wine and the cigarettes."
Which is exactly what we saw. What was so funny was when we went to that park in France, I think it may have been a part of the Luxembourg Gardens, they had a coat rack and all the blazers with wire hangers were hanging up. And the men who were waiting to play were all drinking wine and smoking a cigarette.
Right? I mean, that part was fantastic. The commentary, I will say the commentary on the whole, we've had some exceptions. On the whole, the commentary has been great.
Agreed.
And way improved. So congratulations to I believe it's IBS. It's not OBS doing this, but they do use obviously OBS commentators because I believe they're all freelance. But the commentary game and the color commentary people they have picked have been very, very good. This color commentator might have been the one who did keep coughing, and he was kind of like, I'm done. One of them was really like, I am done. My voice is shot.
And we have experienced that
Yes.
after 11 days of straight work,
Yes,
of
so
straight
we
shows.
feel you. We feel you, commentator. Breakdancing. I did not get to breakdancing yet. So, what did you think?
I watched women's breakdancing. We saw some familiar faces, Nika and
Okay.
671 from the Olympics. I actually watched this with my daughter, which was kind of fun. And her comment, she said, "What are they judging them on?" I said, "I don't really know." And she said, "They're just making stuff up," meaning the judges as to pick
Yeah.
the winner. And we spoke to two different breakdancers. We watched and we spoke to a judge and we spoke to we watched it, we listened to the commentary, and I still don't know how they pick a winner.
Mm.
And that's the most frustrating thing about breakdancing.
I would agree. Not having watched this competition, but I would agree that if you don't know how something is being judged and you can't figure it out and the commentators can't help you, that's an issue with your event. So,
The one comment, the sort of the broadcast professional kept asking the color commentator, pick a winner for this round, pick a winner for this round, before the judge's score would come up. And the color commentator, and I apologize for not knowing all the names because they don't always say them in the broadcast. He's like, "I don't know. This person had vibes. This person had vibes." So it, it isn't even obvious to people within the sport what's being judged.
right. Cheerleading.
Cheerleading, double palm. Okay.
Saw that. Yes, mixed doubles. I saw the mixed doubles.
And the thing about this mixed, I'm actually going to do, I think, this week's newsletter about this, because the mixed double palms could be 2 women, 2 men, or a man and a woman. There was no rule about the gender setup. And I loved that. And we
Oh, yeah,
saw
it was very
teams
cool.
with every configuration, and it was very clear how they were being judged. Difficulty, crowd engagement, precision, and the different gender combinations didn't change the quality. It changed some of the elements, some of the ways they performed, but it didn't matter. And I loved that about this sport, that it was gender neutral in a way.
In a way, because there was always a way to work your routine to add in difficulty for you or some other kind of form of pizzazz that made your team shine and
Right.
still exploited the point system. You know what I mean? Exploit's a big word, but like leverage the point system to its full potential.
Right. So on some of the male female teams, or even some of the women teams where one woman was smaller and one woman was stronger, they would do some crazy lifts
Mhm.
or sort of throws. But then in some of the other teams, they would do these really precise jumps
Yes.
and really strong flexibility, so that the teams had different strengths. It made it very fun to watch. And I think kind of an interesting example for where we could go in some other sports. I'm looking at you,
Oh.
figure skating.
Oh, okay.
Like, wouldn't it be interesting? And Ice Dance has sort of been playing with this on the professional level. Wouldn't it be interesting if pairs were just a pair of people?
That would be interesting. How would that work?
I'm going to write
What-
about that in the newsletter.
All right. I thought, okay, so I think cheerleading is the in between stage between artistic gymnastics and rhythmic gymnastics because they have something in their hands. They just don't do anything with it.
Though the USA did. They
did-
sort of,
yes,
they swung
did.
it around.
Yes, they swung their so they all the teams have to have pom-poms in their hands. And the USA team did have one move where they swung a pom-pom out and they also pulled out a different pom-pom from that was hiding in their uniform so that they could do a red, white, and blue montage. That was cool, but it was, if you're looking at this not knowing what cheerleading is, if you're going, "Oh, cheerleading is a sport," and you don't understand that cheerleading is connected to cheering for other teams at games, you don't understand why you have to have pom-poms in your hands.
Well, this is a category. There are many different kinds of cheerleading, right?
Yes.
So there's
Okay,
cheerleading.
so-
This particular event included double palm. But if they had different colors, you could see them. They handed off pom-poms sometimes. They would switch
Right.
handholds. So you could see that some teams were doing difficulties with the palms.
But you didn't have to. It's not
You didn't
it's not
have
a
to.
ribbon or a ball where if you have a ball, you must catch it in your crotch or have it drift across your buttocks.
Which I thought you would appreciate, because you hated that part of rhythmic.
I did hate that. I still hate that part of rhythmic. But that gets me about the mixed doubles pom cheer. And granted, this is the only thing I watched in cheerleading.
Well, this
So
was the only cheerleading event.
oh, okay. Well, that helps because I obviously didn't figure it out. One thing I did like, because I have to do a plus minus, I liked the fact that the floor was not springy, and the fact that everything that they did was based on their own strength. So you could see how high they could physically propel themselves without the assistance of a springed floor. And that I thought was very impressive. I thought some of the movement, the USA team was just so phenomenal in the shapes they made with their arms and their palms and what they did. I also hated the music.
Yes.
Everything was a super frenetic song. Like you had Eminem's the 8 Mile song, Lose
Lose
Yourself.
yourself.
But it would be you only
Jacked
got one
up.
shot. Do not miss your chance to blow the USA, Ukraine. You know, and I Love Rock and Roll was in there, and there was something that had like it rains from the center of my guitar or the center of my guitar slowly. I don't know, but it was like you'd hear enough of the lyrics to go, what is this sweet hell? You know?
It was like all the music was on cocaine.
Yeah, so everything was chopped and screwed to an inch of its life, and I don't know how you deal with that going in. But pom was interesting. Cheerleading was very interesting, I will say.
I'm going to go a little out of order because I want to mention the music in some of the gymnastics in the aerobics
Oh,
competitions.
okay, because I did not get to that yet.
Okay, so there's two things you need to look out for. So in the group gymnastics, also, by the way, no criteria for how many men versus how many
Oh,
women. So you
that's
see
nice.
different configurations and how different teams use those different configurations. Very interesting. Also the same with trios. So some trios will be 2 men, 1 woman, 2 women, 1 man. Interesting the way that they use that. But you think aerobics, you think 80s bouncing techno music.
Hmm.
So many sad girls in flowy dresses kind of music.
Did it have any pop beat? Did it, like
Some
the
of them
electric beat?
did, some of them didn't. You will be very surprised at some of the musical choices for aerobics, and again, what they do with it. Here's the wildest thing. 2 different group teams had a chess theme.
Oh my.
Not the show, the Broadway
Right,
show.
right.
The just playing chess, and they were chess pieces.
Oh my.
Romania and Hungary. One more successful than the other. Both really interesting.
Okay. I will be watching this afternoon.
And the costumes tell the story.
Oh,
Let's just put
boy.
it that
Oh,
way.
boy. Does it make you long for the old leotards?
No, I actually really enjoyed them.
Okay, well, that's good.
There are a few other themes that were questionable, but the chess theme was actually really fun, surprisingly. But I did want somebody to throw in some One Night in Bangkok for their
Okay,
chess
right,
theme.
right,
That was a
right.
disappointment.
Okay.
And if you get that reference, you probably also know who Axel Foley is.
Any other gymnastics thoughts?
I agree with something we said last week, even more so. Rhythmic gymnastics is the wrong gymnastics event for the Olympics. It's we have so many better options than rhythmic gymnastics as an additional gymnastics event.
Interesting. Drone racing.
The buzzing is still in my mind.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that sound. And we were talking to Alex from Fantasy 5 Rings the other day, and he said he watched the first half with no sound, and that's the way to watch drone racing. The sound. I think this could be a new torture element.
It could be.
Oh,
It was a tough watch. And there's so much to watch that I did not give much time to. If I didn't like it, I watched it for a little bit and I would turn it off. So drone racing was one I turned off. So you have drones, little tiny drones, and they have to fly through an obstacle course. And when they set it up, it kind of looks like Alex from Fantasy 5 Rink said, it looks like a roller coaster. And when you look at it from the aerial view, it's a shape of a panda head, which is really cute. I adored that portion. The round I saw was 4-on-4,
Yes.
and then the screen split into 4 sections. And you could not tell where anybody was in the course at any given time. If the drone hit something and crashed out, their quadrant of the screen went blank, basically. And
Like they
then
had died.
yes, yes. But it was really hard to see. I would imagine that in person, it's easier to find the drones and watch them do their thing. But yes, you're just listening to buzzing and you see the first person of this drone going very, very quickly through all these obstacles. Sometimes they have to do reverses or go high, go low. You can't really tell what's going on or what's coming next. And then the competitors are all just sitting in chairs with headsets on.
And I did appreciate, whenever the woman would beat a couple of these teenage boys, because that's the round I happened to see. But yeah, this is not spectator friendly
It's not
at
TV,
all.
it's not a TV audience friendly. So if TV audiences are better for your event, then this is not the event for you. I will say the commentator knew what he was talking about.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, did he know the sport inside and out? It was amazing.
But that buzzing will live in my brain and haunt my nightmares.
Um, Flag football. I saw most of the gold medal match for the women.
So much fun. So much fun. I got so excited watching that game for LA. And I agree with John. Watching the women's game was interesting, different tactics. Hearing a woman as an official yell first down
Mm.
got me a little emotional. Because we talk so much about gender parity and women's opportunities in sports. And obviously in professional football, you don't see women and you don't see women officials. And to hear a woman on that football field calling downs was exciting and fun. And not just from a gender point of view, it was a good game and literally down to the last second in that US-Mexico gold medal match.
Yes, I will say that the quality of that match is just so good. And Mexico, and I don't want to knock the US because they are a very, very good team. Obviously, I think, a lot of expectations for them to win because it's a sport that originates in their country. This is the second games in a row that they've gotten the silver. But Mexico, man, do those women know how to sprint and dodge and evade? They are just going to be so much fun to watch in LA. And I'm curious how the rest of it will play out. As John said, there are fewer teams in LA, so you're going to have a smaller tournament. Is that going to be enough to give you a true sense of what this is? Although if you're watching just one game, do you care?
I watched the bronze medal game as well between Canada, where Canada beat Austria, and that was also quite a good game. So there is enough since it's a small tournament. I think if you watch any game, you're going to see some really good quality flag football,
Okay.
which will be helpful. I don't see this again because the tournament is so small. I don't see a lot of blowouts happening,
Okay.
which keeps it interesting.
Yes.
And that you have at least 3 teams, because I think in a couple years, Canada's close. So I think you're gonna have 3 teams really battling for that gold, and then possibly all 6, at least 4 that have a really good shot at the podium will keep it interesting.
And that's on the women's side.
And that's on the women's side.
Have to see some men's to see what that is going to be like. So appreciate John's insights on that. Inline skating.
So I watched, first of all, Ecuador and Colombia are so good in the speed skating realm.
I
So
remember
good.
that.
Both
from-
men's and women's. I think it was Ecuador only sent 4 athletes, but came up with a handful of medals out of speed skating, which was fantastic. I watched the 10,000 meter elimination. This is like short track in that everybody's on the track at once. And then it's like that speed skating where they have bell laps,
Mhm.
But if you're last in the bell lap, you get pulled off the track. So that made it even higher stakes with each round.
Yes,
So
it's like that track cycling event too.
yes,
Love
yes.
that.
So that there's speed and tactics and strategy involved. So that was fun to kind of watch. Okay, yeah, you got to go really fast, but you got to conserve yourself because it's 10,000 meters, but you can't be last in this particular moment. You've got to keep with the group. That was really enjoyable to watch. And then we both watched classic slalom, which is this. I thought it was going to be a race when I turned it on, thinking it was going to be like a ski race with slalom. Oh, no, 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 no. This is some bizarre cross between slalom racing, figure skating, inline skating. So they perform, I don't know, figures, dance moves between cones to music, and there's a costume involved.
Yes. This
I
is
found this
another
so stressful
what made it stressful?
because they were going to hit the little cones.
Oh, okay.
And then if they hit a cone and it was out of place, and then they hit the cone again, and the cones would start flying everywhere. And again, some interesting musical choices.
So to me, this was another drill that became a sport or an event because I totally saw, oh, we've got all these cones lined up so you can practice your slalom technique and we're going to drill on this. And there happens to be music going on in the warehouse or somebody brought the boom box to the beach because we want to have fun. And then someone's like, oh, that was a cool move. I bet I could do that. And they're like, no, we got to do it like this. And lo and behold, we have a sport. I don't know.
I think this falls into your same category of disliking rhythmic gymnastics.
I mean,
There was no crotch involved.
well, no, and I don't wanna knock what people do, it's not for me, and I don't understand that's where we get into the lines of, why is this particular thing a sport
Versus other events.
versus other events? Because I very clearly but then again, we go, well, the World Games are only so old, and you have a lot of new sports in this. In 100 years' time, are people gonna be like, will this have evolved into be something very, very different and very unique and very and this is a hard thing to do because they are moving their feet so fast in between these cones. But in the early days of whatever we're calling this, I really see it as I see the evolution from a drill to an event.
And this seemed to be put in place in roller sports in a replacement to the thing that looks more like figure skating, the singles and the pairs, because we didn't see that this time
No,
in
the
the World
quad-wheeled
Games.
yeah, the quad-wheeled,
You
roller
know,
skating.
right? Kind of the old school performance roller skating where they would do axles and
Mhm.
pirouettes and camel spins and things that would look like Olympic figure skating. We got this instead. Because I think more people rollerblade than roller skate now.
I am curious because there's different types of roller skating,
Yeah,
and I don't see a ton of people rollerblading like I used to when rollerblades first came out.
that's
You'll see
true.
people rollerblading because you can tell that they're hockey players, and this is their
Right.
summer hockey and how they keep up, but I don't see that as much as I used to, but I would be not surprised to find out in other countries that this is a big deal.
Right, because all of the roller sports, there was inline skating, inline hockey, speed, and slalom. It's all roller blades. There was no roller skating events.
Mhm.
So, is that the evolution of roller sports?
Good question. I mean, it's interesting to be in this time where you see sports evolve, and you see it in Olympic sports or Paralympic sports. You can still see evolutions because there's sometimes we've got to respond to technology or somebody's figured out how to do a move differently or better, and that just makes them so much better than the competition, and everybody's got to catch up. But yeah, you really see some we're evolving from early days of sport, and there's a lot of change that happens. I did love the commentating duo because you had the woman who was very excited as the main commentator and the color commentator who was not super comfortable speaking in English, so she was very, very blunt. And I loved it so much.
That was not good.
It was
that
fantastic.
was a mistake. That
That was
music is not good.
That
And
was
I'm
great.
like, that's right. It wasn't.
Let's move over to moto surf.
Don't ask me to explain it. I don't know what the heck was going on. But here's the cool thing. When they did the mixed team, the Polish team was a father and daughter.
Oh, that is right up your alley.
That is right up my alley. Exactly. And I think that also goes back to what John was saying, that you have a much broader age range in the World Games than you often see in the Olympics. You'll see some of these pairings that were interesting. And what was funny was the commentator was commenting about whether dad or daughter were going faster
Okay.
and what the conversation would be like between them if one beat the other. And I was concerned he might have been having some parental therapy happening as he was doing the commentating, like, "Oh, her dad is going more quickly. They may have to have a discussion," or, "Ooh, she beat him. That will be helpful." But the really fun one was on the last day in the men's moto surf competition. So in this competition, you're on not a jet ski, but this other
Yeah. So
thing.
let's talk a little bit about the sport first.
Yes.
You're on a little board, like a wakeboard, but it's self-propelled. So it's like the stand-up version of a jet ski in a way. And I will tell you, you can get one yourself for just about $15,000.
Real Is it that
Yes,
expensive?
they are expensive. And these are like battery powered, and that would be a whole package I saw, which comes with the board and the battery and the case and the towel and more for the 14.9.
Well, now you know if it comes on Price is Right.
Yes,
Do
I am so ready for that.
in the
So
showcase, add 15,000 to your
yeah, so
retail price.
it's a stand-up jet ski. I did see the men's race. So they race around a course and they have to do different things. It's a big loop with an extra loop added called the long lap. And so they'll have
Right.
to slalom, they'll have to go certain directions around buoys, and they do it very as fast as you can. So basically it's a speed race with obstacle elements to it. And then in the men's, at least, it was a 10-lap race, and 2 of those had to be a long lap. So you would spin off on this extra loop and do a couple of things on the extra loop. Meant you had to have more endurance. You could put your long lap wherever you wanted to in this race. So that was strategy, because the other thing is that when everybody starts together, you have a lot of wakes that you have to mess with and work your way through. Once you peel off on a long lap, you get out of everybody's wake, so maybe you could go a little bit quicker. So,
Right. So
back to
some
you.
people like to do it at the beginning, some people like to do it in the middle if they get caught among a whole bunch of other moto surfers. Only problem is you gotta remember to do it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the Korean writer, Dao Kim, forgot to do one of his long laps in the
Mhm.
final. So he crossed the line first, thinking he had won the gold medal, and he ended up being DQ'd because
Yeah,
he
it
only
was
did one of the long laps. And the poor announcer was lo they got confused themselves because they both said, "Wait, he didn't do a second long lap." And then the other announcer said, "Oh, wait, maybe the screen just hasn't caught up." And they were both like, "No, he didn't do it." And then a few seconds later, it came up that he was DQ'd, and Czechia, of all countries, won both the men's and the women's.
interesting, interesting. Zhu from China also did not do his second long lap. That was fascinating. I loved the strategy and the tactics of this. I think I would like watching this in person. It was very hard to watch on screen because they used, it seemed like a lot of drone technology, or maybe they had cameras stationed in certain spots. Again, some of the camera work, they also did not talk with the people doing the overlay, so that you would have the standings on one side, the current standings going up one side of the screen. Very cool. You could see who was where and how much of the race they had to do and what position they were in. Some of the camera work would also be on that side of the screen. So you'd be looking at water and buoys and never see who you're supposed to see. It was also difficult to tell which athlete was which.
Yes, they were
And
not terribly distinguished, say, with different colors or numbers or something that made it very
right,
simple to
right.
point them out. Though I will give compliments to the broadcasters on this one.
Oh, they were
because
fantastic.
they were really good. They were also very good prior to the race, saying, "Oh, Zahorsky from Czechia is the world champion. This person is up and coming. This person has been the hot new racer." They gave us a lot of grounding in who we could expect to be good and who the
Yes.
competition would be between. And as we were going along, okay, he did his long lap, so it may seem like he's behind, but he's actually ahead. So that helped a lot.
Yes, and it just would have helped to be able to see what they were talking about easily. And this is a quick fix. This is everybody gets a different colored vest that they put on over their, life jacket. Or they have different colored life jackets, or like you say, numbers, something that is very visible that helps you pick out which person is which and can help you see them go that fast. Interesting sport. It's a race, it's kinda demolition derby-esque.
In
It looked
water.
fun. Yes, I will go back and that's the only one I watched of that.
It's
Um,
fun. It's fun to
yeah, so
watch.
it was a lot of fun. What else? I
You
did
watch
wa
some billiards.
I did watch some billiards because there was talk on the feed of carom, and I was gonna figure out what was carom about, and I watched some of the bronze medal match because I did need to fast forward to find out who won. Carom basically is a pool table with no pockets, and you have 3 balls. You have a white cue ball, you have a what looked to me like an orange ball, but they kept calling it a yellow ball, and a red ball.
Is that
And
kind of like how blueberries are kinda purple?
yeah, I think so. And each player, there's 2 it's one-on-one, and or what I saw was one-on-one. I was watching the women's bronze medal match, and they each pick a different ball to be their cue ball. And they hit the cue ball. So I was watching Sorensen from Denmark versus Perez from Peru, and Sorensen's ball was the white ball, and I believe Perez took the yellow. And so what Sorensen would do is hit the white ball, and it's got to carry him off and hit the next color ball, and that ball has to hit the third ball. So you have to carry him everything and work the angles and the power you put behind your shot just so you hit everything. If you hit all 3, you get a point and you keep going. And you basically can run up the table. You keep going until you miss. And so you play till 25.
I gotta be honest, I'm bored just listening to you explain that to me.
It was a little tough to figure out. This also could be a drill that you do to practice regular billiards. These women, it was something like Peru's first medal in billiards. Very nice. These were both older women, so I applaud that as well. They used a lot of chalk stick on their cues. It was just gotta figure out this shot. Let me go back to the cues. Let me chalk it up some more. It did take a little while to figure out. It's a very quiet sport. V- Very, I would say, mesmerizing if
You
you
do love
put
a
it
good
on.
mesmerizing
Yeah,
sport.
so you can put it on and just be kinda mesmerized by it for a little while, but like I said, I did have to fast forward 'cause I'm running out of time. I didn't have a whole lot of time this week to watch World Games. Did watch a tiny bit of racquetball as well.
I
This
lasted
was
about 14 seconds watching racquetball.
Yeah, this was harder for me to watch than squash, and I think maybe the ball was too bouncy. Maybe it was because you'd have to judge where in the feed the competition would actually start because there was usually about 5 minutes of silence before something actually started. There were a lot of appeals, there were a lot of replays. I just had a hard time watching this. And I've played racquetball. I played racquetball for a little bit in college for funsies, and tons of fun to play because the ball just goes everywhere. It's super bouncy, and you got to pay attention to that and try to hit stuff on the as fast as you can. And it's a lot of fun to play. But this was a hard watch, and I'm not sure they had as good of camera shots for replays as they did for squash. And maybe they just had a hard time tracking the ball. So you lasted 14 seconds. Why? Oh,
I just I couldn't obviously I don't know the sport. I've never played it. And I had the same problem that I did with squash. It was just not camera friendly. It's definitely one of those things where maybe if I was there, I'd be able to follow what was happening more. But on screen, I just could not keep track of who was who, where the ball was going, and it was incredibly frustrating with just knowing what was happening.
I'd be curious to know how squash has evolved, how to make their sport more TV friendly, and what they're talking about in terms of coverage for LA and how to make that something people tune into, because that's obviously the more important element of the sport spectator experience to the IOC, to the, because that's where the bigger audience is. I mean, you're gonna sell out the stands because it's on the universal lot. It's cool, it's a new sport. You'll sell it out, people will have a good time. But how do you make it so it's engaging to watch on a screen?
Because that's how you grow a sport. You see it,
Yeah.
then you wanna play it, then you wanna be involved, then you wanna watch it again, and, most people's exposure to these sports first is on TV.
Yeah. So that is the extent of my World Games watching.
Did you see the closing ceremony?
Oh, besides the closing ceremony, the
Okay.
sports. That's the extent of my sports watching. Closing ceremony, 1 hour long.
So fast. It was basically parade speeches, fireworks, done.
Right. With a little bit of dancing and a long handover ceremony.
Okay, so let's talk about this dancing for a second. So there's 2 dancing things I wanna talk about. I fear the barefoot dancer in a flowy dress has become the new children's choir. That every closing ceremony is going to have this barefoot dance. I mean, we had this in Beijing when it was, 4 degrees. At least the poor girl wasn't freezing.
Well, true. And this is both the next host city's performance. So at Beijing 2022, Milan brought out a pair of dancers and they did a modern dance barefoot in this cold weather. And here Karlsruhe brings out another dancer slash gymnast to do part of their come to Karlsruhe in 4 years.
They also brought out maybe possibly the only pop singer in Karlsruhe because otherwise,
Oh.
why did they bring him out to sing? I mean, we've heard some bad songs related to games. I wrote one particular line of this song down. Only one can be the champion, but we gonna party as a family.
Oh my. I did write down World Games, here we come. 'Cause that was rough. That was a really, really rough moment to get through. And I say I would feel bad for the songwriters, but I'm betting this stuff is AI generated now.
Yeah, there was not a lot of, Diane Warren being added into this lyric construction. It was questionable, but fun, appropriately poppy, appropriately bouncy, appropriate dancers all around. Another dance element I want to mention is no idea how much the Chinese love their ballroom dancers because they brought them back. Do you remember at the Paralympic closing ceremony that they had that whole sequence of the ballroom dancers that we actually saw rehearsing in the parking lot of our
Yes.
hotel? This time they had a whole Latin sequence,
Yes.
which was great. So apparently the Chinese love ballroom dance. Who knew?
Also, a very fun moment and very this ceremony seemed to be very time sensitive. I'm not
Yes.
sure how many spectators there were there. And if it was just for the athletes, they came in, they had a good time. We got some fun and games. Here's where the next ones are. IWGA president declares the games closed. And poor guy, I
did
shouldn't make fun of
love
him.
But you know what? I did love that each person pretty much spoke in their own language. They didn't use the Olympics have 2 official languages, English and French, but everybody here just spoke what they wanted to. And
Yes.
Ollie Hogman, our lovely friend Ollie Hogman was doing the call and gave the television viewer the translation that they had been given, like we were given at the
Yes.
different ceremonies. So if people were not speaking in whatever language, you understood what was happening. So that I thought was more international, if that's
Well,
the right flair?
that and they are more comfortable speaking
Oh,
in
at
their
the
own
very
language.
least.
So at least you get that genuine feeling that comes across when you're speaking in a language that your native tongue. So that I appreciated, and that was fine, and everybody kept everything pretty short.
Pretty standard. There was no
Yeah, nothing super exciting. Karlsruhe seems very excited to host the games. They had a big video thing. There were lots, of course, video clips of what happened during Chengdu 2025 in terms of competition. It was very cute because every segment had a different W and it all spelled out, "We wish for a wonderful world." Once you were done, the different segments came together. Then we just had the cauldron extinguishing with the children's choir singing Old Lang Syne.
which a perfect song choice, but also an odd song choice. Like, wouldn't there be an appropriate Chinese song for that moment?
One would think, and yet here we are. But it worked. It was nice. Again, fantastic cauldron.
Yes. And then the announcement came on, and this took me back to China because as the program was ending, you could hear the stadium announcer say, "The athletes, the after party will begin shortly. Please remain seated for a while." And it took me back to that announcement in the Beijing Media Center about the how the train back to was it Yangcheng?
It's Tai Chi Chen.
Yeah, "We'll be leaving shortly. Please get to the buses." And just the way the announcements were made were this very gentle feminine voice bossing you around. Which was so much fun, and if you kept the feed on, you heard it a few times. But I
Yeah.
also loved, "Remain seated for a while. We're not gonna tell you how long. It's an after party, so just sit tight."
Yeah. But overall, well done, Chengdu.
Very well done.
I do think we're dealing with different resources,
And
available resources,
expectations.
and finances than Birmingham had. But it'll be interesting to see what the next city does, as we keep following this,
And
uh,
first reports have been it was, from the athlete's perspective, very, very successful.
which is what you want. The IWGA during Chengdu 2025 did sign memorandums of understanding with 3 national Olympic committees. So they were from Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, and Slovakia. So that means a lot more joint cooperation and trying to get the World Games more visibility in these countries. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because they only had these agreements with 23 NOCs or national sports organizations. And obviously there are a lot more countries participating in the World Games, but you see how small this is as an organization still and how much more it has to evolve. They also signed a memorandum of understanding to establish the IWGA Sports Research and Promotion Center in Chengdu, which will do sports research and athlete development, sports medicine, and more to advance non Olympic sports in China and around the world.
Maybe that's why they had some additional facilities
Could
available
be,
to them in terms of,
could
like,
be.
sports medicine and massage therapy, and because then they were gonna take those and move them or use them for this sports research center.
Right. I am curious to see what this will look like and how long it will take to be up and running and that kind of element. Sometimes I think stuff like this happens or they sign agreements and we don't know what happens after that. So the next games are going to be in Karlsruhe, Germany in 2029. Philippines and Korea are currently interested in hosting for 2033. So we will see what happens there as well. We got some LA 2028 news.
Let's start with the small news first.
Okay, so paraclimbing events have been finalized. Paraclimbing has been added to the Paralympics. First time in a long time, a new sport's been added to the Paralympic Games. So this is very exciting. They're going to have a visually impaired, upper limb deficiency, lower limb deficiency, and then range and power. So there will be a total of 8 medal events. 40 men and 40 women will be participating.
Okay, now let's get to the big news.
The big news is that the venues will have sponsor names on them.
And this is first time in Olympic history that venues will be allowed to be sponsored. Obviously, this is going to be controversial. Some people love this idea. I've seen Ken Hanscom and Terrence Burns, both of our friends, talking about this on LinkedIn. And on the one hand, lovely resource of a source of income. This is going to be a lot of cash for organizers. On the other hand, the Olympics has a 100-year-old tradition of a clean field of play where there is no sponsorship allowed on the court, field, or course.
Right.
On the third hand, I'm going to need like 14 limbs. It's also recognizing reality. Honda Arena, Comcast Arena, SoFi have these names.
Yes.
Should we give them a new name for 2 weeks? That seems silly.
Yes, when people know them as one thing, to suddenly give them a new name. For Paris, we just knew it was Porte de la Chapelle. We didn't know, well, we knew it was Adidas Arena, and you could see that covered up big time, but we just called it Porte de la Chapelle.
And that was a new facility.
Yes.
That wasn't a long established facility like SoFi. I mean, SoFi's been there for several years. To
And
all of a
it's
sudden call it something else, is GPS going to get you there?
true. Rich Perlman, our friend who writes for the Sports Examiner, he said that this was another step in the evolution of the IOC's view of sponsorship. And we first started seeing stuff in Paris, how LVMH was incorporated into the opening ceremonies, which was very jarring, I will say. And then Samsung phones just magically appeared at the podium.
And what was it the Purell? They had those stands at the swimming venue where you could see the sponsor name on the dispensers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it was a P&G product. It was
Yes.
in the diving wells.
Yes.
In diving in the showers, they had the shampoo and body wash there. He wrote that the IOC is still committed to a clean field of play, and the ban on in-stadium signage will continue, but I bet we see more of this creep.
It's so funny because it always seems to be an American Games that really pushes the envelope on what's acceptable. 1984 was a huge watershed for House sponsorship and organizing committees. Atlanta was a big change that then the IOC decided had gone too far in terms of commercializing the area around the venues. And now again, LA pushing the envelope as to what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And we'll just have to see how this plays out. Will this work? And we know in other areas of the world, we have sponsored venues. I mean, we saw it in Paris. We've seen it in other countries. So it's not like this is a uniquely American phenomenon, but it is a predominantly American phenomenon where I think stadiums are named after a sponsor.
Yes. I do think it's an opportunity to give the IOC top sponsors something more for their buck, more
Because they've been
more bang for
losing them.
Yes, more bang for their buck. And sometimes, people roll off, but as Terrence Burns has said, they don't get a whole lot for their money. So if they can get a stadium named and you talk about this stadium for several years ahead of time, really talk about it during the games, they are getting something that's a lot more visible. And of course, visible in the city as people drive by it.
But they're also talking about temporary venues will get sponsored, which is just for the games, but that's okay. The one thing that I do want to point out is they're not going to give a new sponsor to an existing sponsored venue. So, for example, SoFi can only be SoFi or the Olympic Stadium in Inglewood. You couldn't give that another sponsor's name. So that I think is important that we're not going to all of a sudden get these competing sponsor names for the same venue.
The other thing I like about this is that we don't have to waste time and resources and manpower covering up existing stadium names. Unless, of course, those sponsors don't want to be purchasing those rights. But it is a lot of effort to cover up a lot of stuff and always very silly. And which always takes me back to our hotel room in Beijing where they put this went to an extreme. Like our toiletries that we had in the room were taped over the brands, but the TV was also taped over the brand. And then you turned on the TV and you saw that it was a Philips TV. Oh, okay. But it gets to the extreme of what you use and cover up the brand because it's not an official brand. And I get that. But I
But
think that,
SoFi is still a Pepsi stadium, so that'll
oh boy, I cannot wait to see what happens there. So we I can just see concession stands closed and pop-up concessions elsewhere. But who knows? But we will see how this goes. There's been some good conversation on our Facebook group, so that has been helpful with a lot of thoughts either way, and a lot of concern that there's going to be a slippery slope going on, and we will see a not clean field of play at some point in the future. I don't know. Depends on how much everything costs. So we've got some news from 2034, Salt Lake City.
You scared me for a second with that music because I haven't gotten used to our Salt Lake City music, and the first couple notes sound like our doping sounder. So because there's no doping notes on our sheet, so I got really scared.
Oh, well, this is Salt Lake City 2034 news. KSL.com reports that people are already asking about volunteering for Salt Lake City 2034, which is fantastic.
But calm down.
Yes. The organizing committee CEO, Brad Wilson, said they're probably not going to start recruiting until 2032 or 2033. So you got plenty of time to become a volunteer. There might be a chance to pre-register online. So look for that if you're really wanting to do this. However, Wilson also said that there could be upwards of 100,000 people signing up to volunteer for not as many slots as 100,000. And they're going to be selective if that happens. They will look for people who already have a resume of being volunteers. He said, if you want to volunteer for the games, go volunteer in your communities now. So you got time. Build up your resume.
Or learn some really obscure language.
That would have a delegation at the games.
Yes.
But don't go learning like Thai when there's going to be a handful of Thai athletes there.
Well, you never know. That could be useful for their
Very true.
one volunteer coordinator if you spoke some Thai.
Very, very true. So the organizing committee leadership also had a meeting with state lawmakers who asked how the games were going to be paid for because there's no state budget line item for this. They reminded me, and they're like, we know it's not public money, it's private money. You're going to get money from broadcast rights, sponsorships, tickets. And they said ticket prices are going to be like a barbell, weighted to be very affordable or very expensive. So they could be heavy prices, they could be light prices. They are committed to selling 34,000 tickets for $34 each, which will be the affordable side. They did say expect the affordable tickets to be ones for the competitions at the Soldier Hollow Nordic Center. So that will be your cross-country skiing and your biathlon.
Or would that be the 7-Eleven Slurpee Soldier Hollow Nordic Center?
Wow. You never know. You never know. Got some news from the International Paralympic Committee. They have recognized 2 federations. So this would be new ones that they recognize, Sambo and bowls. So those are on their list of sports that could be chosen for a games. Does not necessarily mean they will be in, but it means they could be into a games at some point. The IPC is also having elections coming up, meaning that Andrew Parsons will be running for a 3rd and final term as president. This time he has some competition from Dong Hyung-bae, who's from the National Paralympic Committee of Korea. And the election will be taking place at the IPC General Assembly on September 27th. So we will keep an eye on that.
Welcome to Shukflastan.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners who make up our citizenship of our very own country, Shukflastan. A lot of stuff going on in athletics and para-athletics.
Yes. So representing the United States at the Para-Athletic World Championships in New Delhi, September, selections were made based on the national championships. Noah Lambert will be in the long jump T63 and 100 meters. Jaden Blackbelt will be competing at the 100-meter and 400 meters in T38, and Justin Fongsavan will be throwing the javelin.
And then also at the USATF Para National Championships, Daniel Romanchuk won the men's 5,000 meters in the T54, and Noelle Malkamaki placed first in the women's shot put F46. That's her fourth national title. She said on Instagram she was opting not to go to the Worlds this year because she's trying to navigate the life of a professional athlete, which I thought was interesting and smart for her. And I totally want to talk to her about this.
I know we talked to her a little bit about that transition time she was having last year, so not a big surprise in a way. So on the athletic side, from the United States, who will be heading to the World Championships in Tokyo, Kenny Bednarek in the 100 and 200 meters. He placed first in the nationals in the 100 meter and second in the 200 meter. I just saw that race the other day.
Oh, did you?
I went back and watched it after we had a conversation about it. So there's a little hearty rivalry with Noah Lyles. Let's just say.
Well, if you haven't seen it, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But we all know that Noah Lyles likes to he's got a lot of personality on the track. He likes to talk big. He has big gestures. He trash talks, whatever. Apparently something was said before the 200 meter to Kenny.
Right. And then at the end of the race, Noah Lyles looks over at Kenny as Noah's crossing the finish line in a very aggressive, I hate to say a very aggressive stare, but it was not a friendly little Usain Bolt, look at us finishing. No, It was. And then Kenny Bednarek, as Noah Lyles kind of crosses in front of him after the race, gives him a shove out of his way.
Yes. Caused a little kerfuffle. They've talked it out since.
We'll see if we can find out some more.
Yeah.
Also heading to World Champs, Katie Moon, who finished second in pole vault, and Deanna Price won the hammer throw.
Gymnast Brody Malone has been named to the men's national team heading to the World Championships in Indonesia in October.
Beibing Zhang will be heading back to the Adidas Arena in Paris to compete in the Badminton World Championships, which run August 25th to the 31st.
Powerlifter Louise Sugden has qualified for the World Championships in Cairo in October.
Congratulations to para archer Matt Stutzman for achieving his goal of reaching 200 miles per hour in his drag racing car. He has qualified for the NHRA U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis, which run from August 27th to September 1st.
Figure skating analyst Jackie Wong has launched the Rocker Skating Podcast, and you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Congratulations to listener Tommy on the publication of his book, The 1980 Moscow Olympics, A Day-by-Day History.
Very excited to get my hand. Oh, I have my hands on it. I'm very excited to get my nose in it.
I got to wait to get my hands on it because you got my copy.
Yeah, but thank you very much, Tommy, for sending that to us. And yes, we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. You can get it through our bookshop.org site. And if you purchase books through that link, you support independent bookstores. You also support the show because we do get commission from purchases. Congratulations to water polo player Ben Halleck and his new wife, Kara, who got married on August 7th.
And this is the best news ever. Very special congratulations to Samantha Schultz and her husband, Carl, who are expecting a baby girl in November.
Yay! And speaking of Shuklistan, we have a very good comment. It's our comment of the week this week.
So from our very good friend, listener Patrick from Chicagoland, he said on our Facebook group, I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but let me just say, listening to the podcast about the World Games is more entertaining than watching the World Games itself.
Excellent. Patrick, I totally appreciate that.
Thank you, Patrick, for the love.
So if you comment in our Facebook group or on our different social media handles, we're all at Flame Alive Pod at all of them, or send us a voicemail or email. All that information is in the show notes. When you look at the show description in your apps, let us know. We will be playing the best of the best every week. And that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening.
And until next time, keep the flame alive.